we have did you know that vermiculations is a word used to describe the back pattern, the coloration and unique pattern design on the back of a brook trout? It's worm-like vermiculations spread out across the dark back of a brook trout, and I mentioned dark. That's a characteristic of char because brook trout, they're really related to the Arctic char. They're part of the genus group Char, and what that some of the characteristics of chars are dark bodies, like light colored spotting. Like in this instance with brook trout, they have the blue spots or the red halos around them. I'm gonna look at a photo here and make sure I'm saying that right. Red dot with blue halo. Yeah, I had to look at the photo. So they have the red dots with the blue halos around them. They have light spotting with dark body, and they're a cold water species. Char, they favor very cold waters with lots of dissolved oxygen, very well oxygenated, clean, pristine, clean, cold water. And these are all characteristics of char, hence why brook trout are part of the genus Char. So the mic must not be working. Let me unplug all this crap. Hello? Oh, wait. No, that's not it. Is this thing muted or something? So, anywho's we're gonna go without that. I'm not even sure the mic's working. Could someone chat me? Is my mic working, everybody? I might be having technical difficulties. That's what's neat about these live streams. There's no editing. It's just really me and the flat. Yeah, me messing up, me being tongue tied, not knowing what to say. Is my mic working? Let me know. Here, let me plug it. I'm gonna try it. Hi, hey everybody, I'm live. I hear you just fine. How about now? Can you still hear me? Still hearing me, Jason? This is a plug and go mic. It's the Audio Technica ATR 2500 USB. Did my research, my background check on this, and it says that with my MacBook Pro setup, this is a plug and go mic. But why am I not hearing it? That is weird. But Jason says he can hear me. That's cool. So as I was saying, let's get back on track and talk about the autumn orange trout. The early like discoveries of these fish, they were let's see, the early naturalists, or as you call them, the early like long time ago, the early fish enthusiasts and naturalists, and the early scientific discoveries of these fish. These earlier people studying and learning about the brook trout, they couldn't help but notice the beautiful orange colorations that these fish sometimes displayed. And I'm going to touch on why the male trout. Okay, so I'm spilling the beans here. The male trout, they can just take on these really unique color pigmentations during their spawning times. That's September through November. They're fall spawners, like I mentioned the last live stream. The lake trout, I was talking about lake trout spawning. Lake trout are fall spawners, September through November. Brook trout, just like lake trout, they're in the group genus Char. They're Char, so they spawn in the fall. So brook trout, they're spawning September through November. The males, they can take on they can display these really unique colorations, and they can get really bright orange on their belly side. And some other really unique characteristics of brook trout are like the cool, like white strippings along their fins, the tips of their fins. They get the white, really neat, unique white color on the tips of their fins. They have the red dots, blue halos, the vermiculate, the worm-like pattern on their backs. They're just a really, really unique looking fish species. And so because the male brook trout can get so bright orange on their belly, that hence the early earlier name or the given for it, like the early nickname. What do you call it, a nickname or street? Like, anyways, the earlier discoveries of these fish led to the name the autumn orange trout because of that bright orange coloration that the males can display during the spawning times of the year. How neat is that? And okay, so I touched a little bit on the coloration, spawning a little bit. Let's back up to where I was mentioning in the beginning, talking about the characteristics of char. And now I'm on the topic of brook trout. Jason, can you actually hear me? Or I'm wondering if you're picking me up through the computer's mic and not this one. Let me know, Jason, if the audio sounds different than last week. Because I'm testing this new mic out on this week's live stream. See how she works. Excuse the brief pause, everybody. Don't go anywhere. I'm asking a question. So it does. Yeah. I'm wondering if my voice is being up by this new mic. Yeah, let me know. So brook trout, they're North America's iconic, like freshwater, cold water species of fish. They says people often get hung up on native versus stock trout. How can you tell the don't know which mic is working, but I hear you just fine. That's too all right. Hey, I'll just keep this all for looks. Looks a little more professional this week. Jason, I'm glad you actually asked that question because I posted earlier that I was going live talking about the biology and history of the brook trout. And I got an immediate comment by someone. This is the same gentleman that I think commented on one of my video uploads on my regular Spike Skills YouTube channel. This individual said in the comment something along the lines like, why would you post a tank scrubner for when doing a live stream about brook trout or something like that? He was bashing on the brook trout and on me catching supposedly stocked brook trout. Okay, but this brings me to a point in my conversation that I wanted to touch on anyway, talking about the just how sensitive the brook trout are. That they're Mother Nature's most sensitive fish species out there. And believe it or not, the true trout, like rainbow trout, brown trout, they're true trout. They're lighter colored bodies with dark spots versus char or light colored spotting with dark body, dark background. And true trout can survive in warmer temps. They can true trout, real trout, like rainbow trout, brown trout can actually live in bodies of water and streams and ponds that are warmer than 60 degrees and probably probably aren't as clean as and pristine as the brook trout and lake trout waters. Brook trout, just like that of lake trout, Arctic char, char in general, they're Mother Nature's radar for pollution and for lack of dissolved oxygen and for warming of the water. If you have a lake stream that's warming too quickly and there's not enough dissolved oxygen in it, and it could devastate a brook trout fishery just like that by the snap of my fingers. And brook trout, man, they really they require those real deep, cold basin type lakes and ponds, and pretty much why brook trout. uh, Brook trout, they're native to the New England state. They're native to the eastern United States, the northeastern United States, pretty much. Well, from Georgia north, from the state of Georgia all the way up to New England to Canada and the eastern hemisphere, the eastern part of the northeastern part of the United States and up into Canada. From Georgia up along the east coast, brook trout are native to that part of the region. They're native to Maine, and how this is really neat. This is touching on a little bit of the history of the brook trout. I'm gonna do some charades here. Okay, no, let's not just let's not do that. This isn't a game show, but let's just cut to the chase, shall we? Picture, uh, thousands of years ago. What was going on? There was the ice age, right? The freezing. There, the northeastern part of the United States, Canada, pretty much a lot of the northern hemisphere anyway. The North United States was formed by the receding glaciers, right? That this is no, everyone knows this. The glaciers, as they thawed and receded, they as the glaciers were doing a thing, thawing and moving and receding and eroding, they were carving out the landscape, carving out the geography, and making uh, really high elevation mountain streams. They were leaving the receding glaciers were leaving mountain streams behind, and the receding glaciers carved out valleys and areas for brooks, streams in general, and obviously eventually we had lakes and ponds formed by the receding glaciers, the melting and thawing of the glaciers. And as the world was forming, and as the northeastern part of the United States was forming and developing, be designed by the receding glaciers and by God. God, when He formed the earth, He made mountain streams and ponds and lakes that were pristine and cold and pollution free, and were loaded with rainbow smelt and other small minnows, and there was phytoplankton and in these bodies of water that, and I'm naming off food items for the brook trout. Like just like what I mentioned last week, lake trout, they love they do very well. They grow longer, they have longer growing times, and they grow bigger, larger trophy size if there's a large population of smelt, of rainbow smelt. But just like the lake trout will eat whitefish, cisco, other minnows, phytoplankton, any type of like algae, phytoplankton, insects. So will the brook trout. The brook trout eat insects, smelt, shiners, minnow, any type of small fish. And what's really unique about brook trout, they're a lot they're a lot like the lake trout in that if the brook trout are in a body of water that has temps that don't exceed 68, the highest recorded temp in lakes and ponds where brook trout were still living and thriving and doing okay was like 68 degrees. But a degree above 68 degrees, it could choke them out. The brook trout could suffocate. The pretty much the warmer the water, the less dissolved oxygen, the less oxygenated, the more pollutant, the more algae and stuff grow, and the more pollutants, the less the less insects, less other fish species for that matter. So pretty much the brook trout, they need a body of water with lots of rainbow smell. Believe it or not, there's 5 lakes in the state of Maine, 5 famous, well-known lakes in the state of Maine that are well known for trophy brook trout. And that's trout exceeding 6 pounds, weighing 6 to 10 pounds. And in these lakes, the commonality, the one common, well, the multiple common factors that all 5 of these well-known lakes have in the state of Maine are number one is rainbow smelt, a very large population of smelt. And yes, Moosehead is one of them, Jason. Can you name any others? So we have Moosehead is one of the 5. How about Rangeley? Rangeley Lake, and then there's Moosehead, Rangeley, I can't even pronounce it. Here, let me look it up. So Sebago actually isn't on this list, Jason, believe it or not. But so five lakes in the state of Maine that are known for trophy brook trout. And so 1, Moosehead, Rangeley, yeah, Rangeley. Oh, here we go. And Moosla. Oh, what? Okay. Moosehead, Rangeley, West Grand Lake, Big Reed Pond. Actually, there's there's others, great ones. Musla McGunkdick or something like that. Yeah. Anyways, Chamberlain, Allagash. Yeah. There's a lot of bodies of water in the state of Maine that so why the brook trout do so well in the state of Maine is because Maine has a lot of pristine, cold, deep, cold basin like lakes and ponds that hold large population of rainbow smelt and other fish species that they can eat and so forth, so on. And the brook trout that actually feed mostly on smelt will grow larger quicker. And those are going to be your trophy brook trout. Brook trout that predominantly feed on insects will always stay somewhat smallish. Those are your 6 to 12-inch brook trout living in your brooks, your streams, and your mountain streams and brooks that people will take the trout worms and their little spin cast rods, trout worms too, to go brook trout fishing. Hence the name brook trout. So brook trout do well in very cold, pristine, well oxygenated mountain streams and very cold, pristine, pollution free, smelt ridden like waters, ponds and lakes. Let's see, the list could go on about their sensitivity, about what they require. They see temps have to be below 68 degrees. The favorable temperatures for brook trout, though, are between 50 and 60 degrees. And if you remember, if those of you that follow me live every week, last week's live stream, I was talking about lake trout. They require the same virtually all the same things that brook trout need for survival. And so and what's really unique really is your like scientists, biologists, the Maine Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife biologists, some of the they they can really tell if a certain pond or lake isn't healthy anymore, isn't really doing so hot. They can tell if a certain lake or pond is ridden with pollutants and doesn't have enough dissolved oxygen. And they can really tell a lot about a fishery, about the health of a body of water if it once harbored a population of brook trout, and then all of a sudden one day that brook trout fishery was wiped out. Oh, big red, instant red flag for the Department of Fish, Wildlife biologists and scientists and environmentalists and stuff. They want they they would definitely look into that body of water and figure out what's going on. So let's see. Jason's put up the worms, leaving glacier poop all around, mighty bimps. Nice. What do we got? Yeah, let's do that. Oh, the chatter is nil today. I'm pausing briefly to read the chats on the right-hand column, see if anyone else is joining the chat group. They are not. For some odd reason, the live streams have been a little quieter. But I was going live every Monday nights at 9 p.m., and I was getting a great turnout then versus me going live on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. And as I mentioned last week, during my first week going live on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., it was kind of a test to see if maybe my recurrent viewers would climb, would be higher, and so forth, so on. And I'm seeing that it's a no, a hard no. I may have to revert back to going live on Monday nights because I was getting a lot more participation than going live on Monday nights. But in due time, I think if I just stick it out. But also another thing, I don't want to confuse the YouTube algorithm too much. But if I keep switching back and forth, switching my live streams around from Monday night to Wednesday night, I could confuse the algorithm. The YouTube algorithm wouldn't know where to push my video, my live streams out to, what audience to push my live streams to. It would just confuse it all together. Consistency is key in growing a YouTube channel. So I'll just keep it consistent for now. I like these Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. So I'm going to try to stick it out for a while longer. I think once I get into turkey hunting chatter, turkey hunting talk, get back into hunting conversations, that participation might climb. I've noticed that once I started talking ice fishing and talking about fishing and fish in general on my live streams, the participation has gone down a little bit. I think that the people that are into my Spikes and Gills YouTube channel are probably more interested and intrigued by what I have to say about hunting than fishing. But oh well, whatever. Oh. Let's get back to brook trout, shall we? So the typical sizes that you want to look for in different types of bodies of water, like in streams, brooks and streams, your average length size for brook trout will be anywhere from like 3 to 12 inches. An exceptional brook trout caught from a mountain stream or brook would be 12 or more inches. And your lakes and ponds, you can expect to, if you're a fisherman wanting to target the brook trout, or just you're here listening and watching and stuff and just want to learn, your average length sizes in ponds and lakes are like anywhere from 12 to 20 inches. An exceptional large brook trout, trophy class size brook trout, could be would be anywhere from like 20 to 26 inches in length, weigh in somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds. Your 26 plus inch length brook trout would weigh closer to the 10 plus pound range, and your 14 to 18-inch brook trout will weigh anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds, depending on how big the girth is on them fish. And a really cool fact, everybody. Hey, listen closely. Are you guys there? Hello? Anybody? Anybody there? Can you hear me? A cool excuse me. A cool fact I have to share with all of you is the world record brook trout caught. It was sometime back in the early 1900s. In the early 1900s, the world record brook trout caught was out of the Nipigon River, the Nipigon River. It was 14 and a half pounds, everybody. A 14 and a half pound brook trout caught in the early 1900s. That's impressive. That is a monster brook trout. I'm hoping that next weekend when I'm at Moosehead Lake ice fishing with my buddy Ed and his wife and his kids, I'm hoping I can land me a nice big trophy brookie or a big trophy lake trout for that matter. So nice. So Jason can still hear me because he responded, that's epic. A 14 and a half pound brook trout. That's nuts, isn't it? That's insane. So brief pause here for a moment. I'll gather my thoughts and read the chats. Chats are on the right hand column. Let's see what Jason had to say. So I'm going to back up here a little bit because Jason asked a question. People often get hung up on native versus stocked brook trout. Okay, you see, earlier I went on a big tangent. I was rambling about how sensitive brook trout are, how sensitive of a fish species brook trout are, how sensitive they are to pollution and oxygen and temp and all that. A little bit of history here. Okay, from my studies, my research, I've learned that a lot of logging operations wreaked havoc on brook trout fisheries. That makes sense, right? The state of Maine is well known for its logging industry, for its clear cuts up in the mountains and stuff, so forth. There's still a lot of logging going on today. Logging can wreak havoc to a brook trout fishery because the logging can create erosion and create runoff into nearby streams and mountain brooks that once had native species of brook trout. So there's the log, and there's just the human populations growing and the development of just development in general, human development, created pollutions that entered bodies of water that killed off brook trout fisheries in certain ponds and streams and lakes and such. And so this is a huge debatable topic. We've had our ears burnt off from hearing about climate change and the global warming climate change and the fluctuating and the pretty much the environment changing drastically really quickly can wipe out a brook trout fishery, a lake trout fishery. It's just the warming of the body of the water very quickly, the depletion of the dissolved oxygen very quickly, and the killing off of food and stuff would wipe out any fish for that matter. And so the debate here versus native versus stocked. So, okay, you got to think here for a moment. If once pris- this pristine northern parts of Maine, mountainous parts of Maine, was once untouched and just was just pristine and clean and free of pollution, and there was brook trout in every body of water that you'd probably come across in the mountains at one point in time, one time or another. Then the logging industry came into play, and logging roads were built up and around and all through the mountains and all through the wilderness of Maine that once was untouched and undisturbed wilderness. Now it's just all of a sudden disturbed, and there's trucks and cars riding these roads up in the mountains. There's humans coming and going. There's human disturbance almost anywhere in the state of Maine now at this point in time, unfortunately. Sea run. Oh, I'm going to touch on that. Yes, there's Jason. I'll get back. We're going to get on that topic. The sea run trout. They are there are sea run brookies, brook trout. It's part of the history and biology of the trout. We'll get on that. We'll touch on that topic, Jason, briefly. So we have organizations like the Trout Unlimited, and we have our federal environmentalists and biologists, our state biologists, state inland fish and wildlife biologists, and so forth, and any other fishing organizations and stuff out there. They're they're all working together, and us, like me, you, all the general public, we're all those of us that are donating to the conservation funds to help uh, make waters clean again and help, and all the conservation projects that are in effect are being planned to help the brook trout fishery. That we all of us as a whole, everybody as a whole, can help with this and help clean up pollutions and make bodies of water clean again, and hopefully be favorable for the brook trout again one day. So we have obviously there's your stocked fish. There's the brook trout. They're being raised and bred and raised to be released into certain ponds and lakes and brooks and rivers in hopes to restore the once native healthy population of brook trout that Maine was well known for, that New England was known for many eons ago. The yes, this is a very highly debatable topic, and you we've got people, we got the right side and the left side here, folks. But I if you're anything like me and love to fish and love to ice fish, fly fish, love to fish, period, in general, the it's nice to be able to get onto a lake or pond in a canoe, or nice to wade into a stream or river with my waders and fly fishing and be able to catch a nice big fat plump brook trout on a dry fly. Whether it was stocked or native, it don't really does it really matter if the brook trout was stocked or native. They look alike. They have all the same colorations and patterns, and the vermiculation, the worm-like striated worm-like patterns on the back, the red dots and the blue halos and the yellow dotting and the white tipped fins, and the male brook trout. There's the spawning male brook trout getting developing that orange, bright orange belly, and sometimes the hook jaw. I mean, really, does it really matter if they're stocked or not? Okay, so Jason's saying the second Marks Lake in Crocker's Brook used to be a great brook trout habitat. Oh yeah, so Jason's touching on a few bodies of water that he knows probably from back when he was younger, that used to have great healthy populations of brook trout that probably don't anymore. Uh, yeah, but of these bodies of water though that he's naming, I do get stocked with brook trout. That I mean, pretty much you have these fish biologists that are that are fascinated with fish, with all fish species for that matter. They're I'm lost for words. I'm tongue tied. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but you have their passion. There we go. You got these passionate biologists, fish biologists they would love that can't stand seeing their beloved fish species being wiped out. Uh, they they'd rather see the fish thrive, see the fish populations be at a healthy carrying capacity in these lakes and ponds, so that there could be sustained fishing action for you and I and our children for years to come down the roads. So I want to, before I get into Jason's topic about sea run brook trout, I want to talk more about the biology of the brook trout a little bit about. Let's talk about their spawning habits and behaviors. So, so the not now this isn't okay. Oh wait, a little tongue tied here. I'm gathering my thoughts, what I want to how I want to go about this. So last week we are talking about lake trout. Lake trout spawning. They they don't dig into the gravel and dig out fish beds or redds, as in this case with the female brook trout. They dig out gravel depressions. And the time of year that the brook trout spawn reproduce, or the time of year where they're spawning and laying eggs, is from September to November. September, October, November. This 3 month window of spawning. The female brook trout, they'll dig depressions in the gravelly, sandy bottoms, known as redds, or whatever. And then the males will fertilize the eggs. If the females are laying their eggs in these gravelly depressions that the female dug out with her fins, or her like, you got it's the caudal peduncle, the caudal fin, the tail fin. Getting all scientific on you guys. The caudal fin, known as the tail of the fish, the tail fin, the caudal fin. Just up from that's the caudal peduncle. The caudal peduncle is where the caudal fin comes off of. Then you have your anyways, the caudal the you can picture this, right? You can obviously search this on YouTube, Google this, and see videos of this happening. The female brook trout will dig out, scrape away with her body and her fins the gravelly sand bottom and make a depression in it for her to lay her eggs. And the male brook trout will fertilize the eggs, and they incubate. And these eggs, they're incubating and they're remaining in this fish bed, if you will, until early spring. The eggs hatch in early spring. And now why I wanted to talk a little bit about the spawning. It wasn't really necessarily to talk about how the female makes a depression in the sand and gravel, and how she lays her eggs, and the male comes over, fertilize eggs, and then they hatch in the spring. So forth. Why I wanted to bring this up is talk about the unique colorations that these male brook trout undergo during it really accentuates during the spawning, but they can be the bright orange belly of these trout and the deep red rings of the darker body contrast. It's formed by a pigmentation. So as the hormones increase, you got to figure during spawning, the hormones are increasing, and it's increasing the pigmentation, the production of pigments, of color pigments. And also the males, the male brook trout, they can grow a hook jaw. The jaw can get a hook. It's all the bright colorations in the hook jaw is all to intimidate their suitors, to intimidate other male fish and to to intimidate rival males. Hook jaw, bright colors, very intimidating, right, to the rival male. No different than us, like us humans beefing up, get buff at the gym, get some bigger muscles, and so squirting on our cologne or whatever, and getting beat bright red in the face, and we're being intimidating to our male rivals, right? Well, same thing, same scenario here with the male brook trout and the spawn-in time, the September through November. They're getting the fact that it's time for reproduction. The hormones are raging in the body of the fish. It's allowing a more production of these color pigments that increase the brightness of the orange belly and increase the blue dotting and the red dots, the blue halos and the whites on them, and it also increases the growth of their hook jaw, and it just makes the fish look bad. For a better lack of words, it makes the fish look badass, and and hence makes them intimidating to their male rivals. How neat is that? I mean, that's awesome. Excuse me. I had dinner shortly before going live, so it's causing a little bit of indigestion, a little bit of burping. Man. Oh yeah, so did I mention I've been live for 42 minutes? I think I did, probably 15 or 20 minutes ago. I mentioned the native range for the brook trout, but I'm going to touch on it again a little. This is just pretty much a what they call a conclusion, right? You got an opening line, open header. You got the meats and potatoes, and you got conclusion, right? When writing a essay or writing a story. So I I'm going to repeat this, like I talked about this already earlier. But the native range for brook trout runs anywhere from like Georgia, but pretty much the eastern portion of the United States, the northeastern for sure, all the way to Canada. So from Georgia all the way up through the Appalachian Mountains, all the way to New England, Quebec, and Labrador. Quebec, Canada, Labrador, Canada, all the way up. And historically, though, the brook trout, or inhabited, or in other words, occupied thousands upon thousands of mountain rivers and lakes and ponds in the all the way northeastern part of the United States and all the way up to Labrador and Quebec, Canada. Yeah. So, and brook trout, they're really a fascinating fish species in that they're a lot of times known as North America's iconic fish species, cold water fish species. The they're a true favorite among the fishermen and women. That because of their unique coloration, their beautiful eye-catching, eye-popping coloration and patterns on their bodies, and just the fact that they live in some of the remote, pristine, and uninhabited parts of the world, for that matter. It's just they're amazing. The brook trout, they really truly are. So it's no wonder that a lot of that people will travel from all over the world to come to New England, to Maine for that matter, to Labrador, Canada, or Quebec, Canada, to try to catch a big trophy brook trout weighing over 5 pounds, measuring like 24 upwards of 28 inches, weighing anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. And yes, there's many of these brook trout that are caught year after year after year. But and really, that's because the Department of Fish and Wildlife, our biologists, our environmentalists, and just and the education that's out there, educating the general public on the importance of not polluting our our environment, and just the education that's out there to all, for all of us to, to learn about how to become like a steward of the lands, the forests and lakes and ponds, rivers for that matter, where we all can be we can be stewards of the environment by in a way of, you know, not polluting. If we see litter, picking it up and dispose of it properly. If and just doing our part in educating ourselves on how we can help uh, these conservation projects that are going on to clean the waterways, to make them uh, have more dissolved oxygen, and to make these waterways have more favorable food items for the brook trout, and so forth, so on. We educate our. It's important we educate ourselves on in all this, so that we can. Oh, what was that? It was something floating by, a little strand of something. And so we all need to just do our part, and as stewards, by buying our fishing and hunting licenses every year, and by going out there hunting and filling our tags, and practicing catch and release on many species of fish, and only keeping just the bare minimum amount of fish for consumption, and also that I want to, let's see, um, yeah. So a lot of ponds and lakes are getting a little too much mercury. This one pollutant known as mercury. There, a lot of them are have a high concentration of mercury and other pollutants and things that for that matter. But they there's the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, the Maine State Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, always puts out warnings and stuff for certain lakes and ponds and streams and rivers, as far as like how much fish should be consumed out of these certain bodies of water, based on the amount of mercury and other pollutants that were detected in these bodies of water. And so we just all need to do our part as responsible fishermen and outdoorsmen and women that we are, to practice catch and release, and to educate the public on what we've learned about the certain bodies of water we're fishing. If we know that that body of water has high pollutants, and we should only consume maybe one fish per year from this body of water, or no more than two trout out of this body of water per year, then we should let everybody know. Like, be a voice for the Department of Fish and Wildlife and biologists and scientists, or to help. It helps them get the word out, spread the word, so people aren't consuming too many fish from certain polluted bodies of water, and stuff, so forth, so on. There's just Oh man, I could go on a tangent, go on forever about this stuff, this topic, and I could just search more topics on too, for that matter, about there I am getting tongue tied and losing train of thought there for a second. But we were so um so as a kid, so Jason said, is it correct that the flesh of trout, be it orange or white, is due to what the fish had been eating? Interesting about that. Okay, so the pigment, yes, I actually don't even know why I didn't remember that part. But well, the pigmentations, the color pigments, that the it is increased by due to diet, it's hormones, diet. Yes, all that's true, Jason. The I Zooplankton, phytoplankton, all your planktons, they if the fish is consuming a lot of zooplankton, phytoplankton, it's going to make their colors much brighter. So of a certain so we those of us that have been around for eons fishing for brook trout, catching brook trout for years upon years and years, we every now and then catch one that's very bright in coloration, catch some that are more drab and light in color, and it all depends upon what they've what that fish was eating the most of, the majority of. The your phytoplankton, zooplankton, things like that, that and it's that coupled with increase of hormones for various reasons, whether it's spawning time of year or just the brook trout is just a stud of a trout and just has yeah. It's, it's no different than us humans. We have some guys that are macho, just very hormone driven individual men with very beef and buff. And we, it, they're trout. You could have male brook trout that are just ridden with raging hormones, and they're consuming everything around them. They're eating lots of smelt, zooplankton, phytoplankton, lots of insects. They're just their diet is consistent of a lot of different varieties of foods, and it's allowing that individual fish to just develop more color pigmentation that enhances the brightness and coloration of that fish, the body of that fish. So, yeah, cool. And, thank you for that, Jason. Oh no, it wasn't even Jason that said that. It's Down East Primitive Skill. Thank you, Down East Primitive Skills. See, it's been Jason chatting away for a long time here, but if you have Down East Primitive Skills, says Mark's. Oh no, it was Down East Primitive Skills. So I stand corrected. Here I am saying Jason, 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 because it's been Jason all along until Downey's Primitive Skills joined the chat. It's Downey's Primitive Skills that said that mentioned these certain bodies of water and people, and it quickly was depleted. Yeah, I fished. Yeah, so Downey's Primitive Skills said he had fished these certain lakes and ponds and streams as a kid, and he used to have to walk into these places to fish it, and he'd catch lots of brook trout. But then soon logging roads were brought in, and then a lot more people were coming and going out of from these bodies of water, and that just depleted the trout fishery, the brook trout fishery, and that's just that this scenario is played out time and time again, year after year after year. It, this, but the educating of the general public, being a voice like you can, Dinos Pernovich, Jason, all of us, we could be a voice for the brook trout and, helping the brook trout fisheries survive for eons, for years down the road by knowing what we can do on our part will help. And anyway, whether it's just donation of money, whether we go out and volunteer our efforts or volunteer ourselves to help with cleaning up certain bodies of water, so forth, so on. Whether it's joining forces with the conservation projects that are going to bodies of water to try to clean up the invasive aquatic species, invasive like milfoils, and there's certain invasive aquatic species of plants, aquatic plants that can choke out ponds and lakes, and this not make it favorable for the trout, fish like the brook trout, so forth, so on. And yes, it's true that plants release oxygen. They can help oxygenate a body of water, there's too much. It's pretty much your milfoils, your aquatic vegetation that grows at the bottoms of lakes and ponds and can grow prolifically and can grow very thick and invasive like and can just choke out a body of water and not make it favorable for fish like the brook trout, a sensitive fish like the brook trout, so forth, that could wipe them out, things like that. It also the one big thing that I've noticed in my research stuff and so forth, and this makes sense, that a body of water that's is getting choked out by a certain plant species, aquatic plant type species, the more and more prolific that plant grows. Think about this, it makes sense. It's going to change the temperature of that water. Like I mentioned way earlier in this live stream, the brook trout require temperatures below 68 degrees, but they favor temps between 50 and 60 degrees. The brook trout need very clean, pristine, cold bodies of water with lots of dissolved oxygen, lots of rainbow smelt, and zooplankton, phytoplankton, lots of insects, lots of other fish species that I can eat from that matter. The larger, I didn't mention this earlier. I don't think. No, I didn't. But the larger and bigger brook trout get, a lot of times your trophy class brook trout, your 20-plus-inch brook trout, they almost become exclusively fish eaters. They become uh, they become predatorial. They become a predator fish, eating other small brook trout, other like whitefish, eating perch. And a buddy of mine, my friend Ed, was ice fishing last week with one of his friends, and Ed's friend caught a really big, like 17, or I think it was like an 18-inch brook trout. And he kept this trout, and they opened up its belly. They dissected it, opened up its belly, and found a little smallmouth bass in the belly of this 18-inch brook trout. So the bigger and larger the brook trout get, and the healthier and stronger they get, the more fish they'll eat, the more predatorial they'll become. And see, I didn't mention this earlier. I should have. This is a cool subject about brook trout. Known fact about brook trout. And lake trout do the same. A lot of your fish species will do this. The bigger and larger they get, a lot of times the bigger they get, a lot of times they'll take to eating other fish species, and sometimes their own kind. The brook trout can eat smaller brook trout. Lake trout will eat other lake trout, the bigger and larger and trophy size they get. So this brook trout that Ed and his buddy dissected, they opened up its belly, found a small bass. It was a smallmouth bass, a small one, in the belly of this 18-inch brook trout. How neat is that? I mean, that's awesome. And let's see, I don't mean to. I really hate that I missed it. It was Downey's Primitive Skills that was chatting away. I didn't read the name. So see, I've heard sea run brook trout are orange from the small shrimp they have. Okay, off the coast, nice. And then I've heard so many. So this is Downey's Primitive Skills chatting everybody, saying that he's heard many stories of guys bragging of how many trout they caught here and there, ignoring that they know what they do. Oh yeah, not knowing really what they do. Let's see, and Jason says introduction of invasive fish species has also been a problem. True, very true, Jason. Yes. The introduction. Okay, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything from Downey's Primitive Skills. Is it correct that the fish? Yeah. Come again this summer and mention Spikes and Gills chat call. It would be fun to meet. Nice. Sweet. Okay, so everybody, for those of you that are still with me, the invasive fish species has also been a problem. Okay, and small bass, yep, that can, that him saying that, him chatting, putting that in the chat, reminded me of something I wanted to say. Crap, what was it? Let's look at my notes. So, yeah. So some modern conservation that's going on currently in today's world to help restore brook trout fisheries are like habitat restoration, the habitat restoration in the lakes, ponds, and streams, and cold water protection, protecting cold water bodies areas, and obviously removing invasive fish species and removing invasive plants. The removing invasive fish species is a big one. I do know that certain ponds and lakes in the state of Maine that if it's written in the law books, it's stated by the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the game wardens, biologists. They put it in law made it a rule and a law, a fishing law, for certain ponds and lakes to keep and kill any pickerel and bass that you catch. Like immediately upon catching bass and pickerel, and kill. Do not put them back. They do not want those fish put back in that body of water. They want them killed immediately. A lot of fishermen will feed them to the eagles. If you leave them on the ice, if you're catching a lot of bass and pickerel wherever you're fishing during ice fishing season, like right hence now, if you leave them on the ice and you step back a ways, a lot of times the eagles will swoop down and grab the fish and eat the fish. The fish, they don't go to waste. The eagles will eat them. The eagles, crows. You can keep them, keep the bass and pickerel, and fillet them and debone them and make some mean fish chowder out of them. You can still eat them. You can beer batter the fillets and fry them. Or you could do whatever. I mean, it's limitless what you could do with them. So, but a lot of bodies of water, the laws for those certain ponds and lakes and rivers and streams, for that matter, are to immediately upon catching a chain pickerel or smallmouth or largemouth bass, and for some bodies of water, yellow perch or crop or white perch, like perch in general. Let's just say perch, bass, pickerel. For a lot of ponds and lakes and rivers, for the law states immediately upon catching them, kill them. Do not put them back. So that's one way that's one modern conservation tool or tactic that the Department of Fish, Wildlife biologists are using to help trout fisheries, help to help increase the population of brook trout, so forth, so on. And like I mentioned earlier, organizations like a big one is Trout Unlimited. Another way we could be a steward of the fish, the brook trout, and another way we can help is to join these organizations like Trout Unlimited. Pay a yearly subscription fee to get their newsletters, magazines, get all their discount perks and stuff for fishing gear, outdoor gear. So for a lot of times when you or I join these organizations like Trout Unlimited, you'll be entitled to monthly or every other month or whatever magazine newsletter. You'll get discounts on certain outdoor gear, hunting, fishing gear, so forth, so on, other benefits and perks. And you're just in that, and obviously the money is going to conservation. When we buy our fishing and hunting licenses, this is the Robertson-Pittman Act, right? The Robertson, Jason, or Downey's Primitive Skills, or Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong in saying this. It's the Robertson, Robertson, Pittsman. Okay, hold on. Robertson-Pittman Conservation Act. I think I said that right. The Robertson-Pittman. It's the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act. Here we go, guys. Okay, help me in saying that. Everyone join in with me. Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act. Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act. It's one of the most important conservation laws ever passed in the United States. It is the reason many wildlife populations, including deer, turkey, bears, and even fish habitats, have recovered across the country. It's one of the biggest huge conservation laws ever passed in the United States to ensure that there will always be conservation efforts put forth to keep, to help us have hunting and fishing in the future. Simply put, so the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act, it was passed in the early 1900s, 1937 to be exact. So in 1937, the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act was passed. So, and why I brought this up, why I'm talking about the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act, it stems from our purchasing of fishing and hunting licenses and buying certain fishing and hunting gear, for that matter. There's what the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act is that it's a certain amount of tax put on the purchasing of hunting and fishing gear, and it's a tax put on purchasing of hunting and fishing license. It's just a tax put on all and on us outdoorsmen and women and men. But we're doing good by buying our hunting and fishing license every year and buying hunting and fishing gear, buying camping gear, any outdoor gear for that matter. Certain amount of money goes into the funding of this Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act to we're doing our part by buying all this stuff to fund conservation, to fund the restoration conservation projects for fisheries, for the brook trout, and for other species of fish, and then and obviously for the conservation of turkey and deer and bear and all that, so forth, so on. So how neat is that? So Jay says, yes, the license fees and taxes on gear go directly to conservation. Yes, it does. So how cool is that? I've been live a long over an hour. I made it an hour, everybody. I think I rambled on enough about the brook trout, about the little bit about their biology and the history of the trout, and about talking about conservation and so forth, so on, and how sensitive they are. Their mother, their mother nature's radar for really for pollution, for warming of bodies of water, for too much pollution in certain bodies of water, for a lack of other food, like fish for that matter. So they're so brook trout. They're a North American icon. They're Northeastern American iconic fish. A lot of people from all over the world wide will travel to New England and to Canada to fish for these beautiful fish, these brook trout, in hopes to land a trophy 20 plus inch, 3 to 10 pound brook trout. And brook trout. So I'm just summarizing here, everybody. This is a summary towards the end of the live stream. Remember the temps. Water temps need to be below 60, between 50 and 60 degrees. They need brook trout do very well in lakes and ponds that have a huge population of rainbow smelt. The brook trout will grow quicker and larger in a very quick amount of time. You could in those bodies of water that have a lot of rainbow smelt, have a lot of dissolved oxygen, and the temps stay below 60 degrees for the majority of the year, or in certain parts of that body of water. The brook trout can grow immensely large. They can get to 26 or more inches in length, weighing over 10 pounds. That's impressive. And obviously, and I want to also summarize in saying that the and Downey's primitive skills help jog my memory on this. Jason and all of you that are joined the chat, appreciate you for chatting away and sharing some thoughts and sharing stuff, so forth, so on. The the male brook trout, they can be very impressive. It's real the coloration that the male brook trout can exude during the spawning time of year. And a lot of times though, a male brook trout can hold on to these bright orange colors and these bright colors the majority of the year, just based on its diet, what it's eating, whether it's eating a lot of zooplankton, phytoplankton, so forth, so on, or like the freshwater shrimps or whatever, depending on its diet and depending on its hormones, how the hormones are playing out in the body of this fish. And that a lot of times the male brook trout can grow hook jaw and a real impressive hook jaw, real bright orange belly. Hence my opening line at the beginning of this live stream. I was talking about the autumn orange trout. The earlier scientists or what they call naturalists, the earlier naturalists from like 1800, from hundreds of years ago, just how when they had discovered the brook trout or had been catching the brook trout, they they the brook trout was given the name the autumn orange trout because of the bright orange bellies that some of these trout can exude. So how cool is that? And Spawn and behavior, a little bit about spawn and behavior. Your female, your brook trout, they prefer to spawn in inlets or outlets in streams. If these ponds and lakes have inlets or outlets, have streams that they can swim up, or if a lake or pond is very pristine, clean of pollution, and it has a very rocky, sandy bottom. The and it has favorable spawning habitat. Then your female brook trout, they'll brush away. They'll dig out like a depression with their caudal fins, their body. They'll dig out a red or a depression in the gravelly, sandy bottom, and then they'll deposit eggs in that depression, and then the male brook trout will fertilize those eggs, and those eggs, and this is all taking place in the months of September to November, and those eggs they'll incubate in that nest until spring. The eggs hatch in spring, and yeah. So what else do I want to summarize here about the brook trout? That pretty much it. Yeah. And so remember this: brook trout. They're extremely sensitive fish. If you're going to practice ethical catch and release tactics when fishing for the brook trout, I highly recommend you release them as quickly and humanely as possible. If the fish swallowed the hook, got a hook in its gills, swallowed the hook, if they swallowed the hook, hooks these days are designed. They can biodegrade pretty quickly. The hooks that are the majority of the hooks that fishermen use nowadays that they can rust very quickly and biodegrade and break down and very quickly. A lot of times it's wise to just snip the line and retie a hook on your fishing line if the fish swallowed the hook and you want to release it. If the hook got into the gills or and at the time you were fighting the fish, playing it, reeling it in, a lot of times you'll bring up the fish and it could be bleeding profusely out of the gills and maybe damage its gills and its gullet in some ways. Or maybe you have no choice but to keep the fish. A lot of times when you put those type of fish that was hooked that way, a lot of times when you try to release them, they go belly up and they're just floating there. So in some cases you might have no choice but to keep the trout and bring it home to eat. But, a lot of ethical fishermen they use barbless hooks if they're mainly catching and releasing. They don't intend on keeping any fish. They'll use barbless hooks. Um, see the intriguing part about brook trout really is that they thrive in some high elevation pristine mountainous streams and ponds, and bodies of water, and it's really neat to like backpack into mountain ponds and take out your backpack, foldable fly rod, and take out your fly gear, your packable backpack fly gear, and put on your Tivas or whatever, or even barefooted out into a mountain pond, get up, stand on a rock, and catch some mountain brook trout from mountain pond. There's a pond called Horn Pond in the Bigelow Mountains of Western Maine. And in the western part of Maine, there's the Bigelow Mountain chain. There's a pond up there called Horn Pond. I I did this for like 4 or 5 years straight. I backpacked. I First of all, I backpacked that whole mountain chain, the Bigelow Mountains. I did it twice. I backpacked and camped in the lean-to shelter, pitched the tent, backpack tent, camp. It took like 2 nights and 3 days, 2 nights or something to hike the whole Bigelow Mountain chain. But for I think maybe it was 4 years in a row, I backpacked up to Horns Pond, at just nestled below Horns Peak in the Bigelow Mountains to fish for the brook trout in the Horn Pond. And the trout, they were stalked in this Horn Pond by biologists that backpacked the little fry or pole or the yeah, they backpacked the brook trout up to Horns Pond and released them into the Horns Pond. But this Horns Pond, it's it's a very cold pond with I don't think it has smelt in it. So the predominant food for the trout are the insects that are thriving. Your phytoplankton, zooplankton, your algae planktons, your insects, things like that, and other small trout for that matter. If a trout, any large, big trophy trout in this pond are probably turning predatory, eating other trout and insects and zooplankton, phytoplankton, things like that. So we're so uh, so and some of the aquatic insects that most fishermen, that trout fishermen know about, that obviously the brook trout favor are your mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies. The A lot of fishermen, I do this myself. A lot of fishermen will go to the edges of streams or ponds, lakes, and pick up the rocks from the edge and turn them over, see if there's any like caddisfly larvae, if any fish, any mayfly, stonefly, or caddisfly larvae, or that, and that a lot of trout fishermen, they'll watch for a while, watch the body of water, look to see what hatch took place, see if there's a mayfly hatch, a stonefly hatch, or a caddisfly hatch, or mosquito hatch, or black fly hatch, whatever hatch going on. A lot of times, fly fishermen will try to match the pattern with what flies they have in their fly boxes to catch the brook trout. Or so on. So yeah, all really the trout, the brook trout are just awesome, amazing fish. And so yeah, I did that for like 4 years. I backpacked up to Horns Pond, below Horns Peak in the Bigelow Mountains and I have a backpack. It's an Eagle Claw, I think, brand backpack, breakdown backpack style fly rod that breaks down to about that length, and it fits perfectly in my 5,000 cubic inch backpack. And I had the brand sandal, the Tivas, that had carabinered to the backpack. I'd wear wool socks in my Tivas and just shorts to wade out into the pond and then stand up onto the rocks to fly fish for the mountain brook trout up in Horns Pond in Bigelow Mountains in Maine. Yeah, that's a little bit about my fishing history and my fishing experience with the brook trout fishing experience. See, Downey's Primitive Skills says, I've caught one or two for dinner. Yeah, well, I have to say it, if we've been at it long enough, those of us that have been fishing long enough, it, sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes you bring in a fish in it that you've been playing, and you could just tell immediately it's going to die. It's not going to make it. I mean, how many of us have tried to release a fish we caught, and then it's just floating there, and all of a sudden they go belly up, or they're trying to swim away, but like the tail's up, heads down, tails up, or they're kind of belly up and they're trying to swim, but they can't. It just becomes obvious they're not going to make it. So that fish becomes dinner. Yeah, we've all had that experience. Of those of us that have been fishing long enough. It's no different than with hunting. If you've hunted many years, you're going to miss or you're going to wound. Those of us that have hunted for over 20 years, we've probably at least one or more times have wounded a deer, or definitely had a fair share of mishaps. It's going to happen eventually. A lot of times it's out of our hands. Sometimes it's the reaction of with fishing. Sometimes it's the way the fish bit the hook, right? Whether the fish swallowed the lure or hook, whether it was just caught on its lip, whether the hooks and its gills. And when it comes to hunting, it all depends on the reaction of the bear or deer. The deer can slouch and duck, and for arrows, when the arrows fly in their way, or a lot of times if the shot's long distance with a high power rifle, a lot of times the hunter didn't see certain branches or little tree saplings in the way or leaves that could have deflected the bullet a certain way. So forth, so on. So if we're at it long enough, we're going to wound fish, we're going to wound deer, we're going to miss fish, we're going to miss deer, right? It's just all part of being a sportsman and outdoorsman, all part of being a hunter and a fisherman. So I want to thank Jason down his Primitive Skills for joining the chat. for being on here tonight. So those of you that are new here, or maybe you're not new but you forgot, I go live every week. I'm now I was going live every Monday nights, but I'm now going live every Wednesday nights starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So every Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. Come join us live, the Spikes and Gills live stream, to join the live chat, to join the conversation. I plan these live streams. They're not just at whim and random. I come up with a specific topic I want to talk about, that I want you to chat with me about, so that we can learn from one another. So questions can be asked, questions can be answered. I want to build a nice, strong community centered around my Spikes and Gills live streams every week. A nice, strong hunting fishing community where we're talking about anything to do with hunting or anything to do with fishing. And right now, currently, the topics are on fishing, ice fishing or certain fish species right now. But I'm soon going to transition my live streams into turkey hunting, to talk about all about turkey biology, history, current events around turkey. So that's soon to come. And yeah, so I want to thank all of you for watching, for hitting the like button, for chat. Those of you that joined the chat, thank you. Thank you for sharing and asking questions and sharing your little tidbits of information. So the whole, like I mentioned, this live stream every week is for you and I to have a conversation, to chat away, to ask questions to one another, to answer questions, to learn from one another about anything to do with certain fish species, fishing tactics, anything to do with hunting tactics, or anything to do with certain animals that we hunt. Yeah, so thank you everybody for joining. And definitely click the like button. Subscribe to Spikes and Gills if you're not subscribed already. Please subscribe to my channel, because I upload every week a regular episode, regular mainstream YouTube video, anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes long, about ice fishing. A lot right now, the videos that I'm uploading are to do with ice fishing, on like how-to instructional type ice fishing videos, and how I went about catching certain species of fish there. Or it's just ice fishing upload about some trout fishing, catching trout through the ice, or perch through the ice, or whatever, anything to do with ice fish. Soon, the uploads will be all about turkey and turkey hunting. I'll have a whole series of Spikes and Gills YouTube episodes about turkey and turkey hunting. And my live streams will soon be about turkey hunting. So thank you again, everybody. I want to direct your attention to the description below all of my YouTube videos, because there's the PayPal links for my two books, the Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. The PayPal link to order this book is in the description below all of my YouTube videos. And then Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets. So these two books, they can be down. They're ebooks, and they're also hard copies. You can go into the descriptions below any one of my videos and click on the PayPal links to order any one of or both of these books. And you can go to lulu.com, or you can go to amazon.com. You can order them through the Amazon outlet, these books are in all 6 Sherman bookstores across the state of Maine. You can go to Lulu. I'll put it in the chat. You can go to lulu.com and search these books: Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets, and what the Sit Spot is trying to force you to purchase the ebooks. You can buy them just as an ebook to download onto your phones or PCs or Nooks, Kindles, iPads, whatever you have for ebooks. So you can go to lulu.com to buy the ebooks, or go into the descriptions below all my videos, click on the PayPal links to order the hard copies of this Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets, or the Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. Thank you, everybody, for joining the live stream this week. And obviously, there's the shopping icon. You can click on to browse the Spikes and Gills hoodies and shirts. below all this. So thank you, everybody, for everything. So how about Spikes and Gills merch? Yeah. Jason beat me to. Yeah, I was bringing that up. The shopping icon below all my videos. If you click on that, and sometimes too below all my YouTube videos, it will show the tees, the female, male tees and hoodies for Spikes and Gills. So thank you, everybody. And I hope to see you all back here next it used to be Mondays. Next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. I'll post though. I'll put a post up on YouTube to remind everybody that the live stream is about to start on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you, everybody. Until then, tight lines. Hey, be safe out there. There's been a lot of thawing going on, a lot of rain and thawing. The weather's getting warmer. The ice is getting a little helter-skelter. So please use caution when out there on the hard water. Be very safe. And tight lines, everybody. I wish you the best of luck in your next couple of weeks of ice fishing. There's only a couple of weeks left of ice fishing, so best of luck. Be safe. And soon we'll be talking turkey. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. See ya.